like many others, I also had the privilege and a blessed privilege to come to Vidyapith for becoming a monk when most revered Srimad Swami Shwitananda Ji Maharaj was the secretary here. Today I was not supposed to give any lecture, but since I am here, I will be recalling some sweet memories associated with 2 monks of the time and 3 non-monastic members of that time. In Deoghar, I was very kindly given a rare privilege by revered Swami Shwitananda Ji Maharaj to render a little service to Swami Pavanananda Ji Maharaj, who was also known as Sahib Maharaj or Shambhu Maharaj. He was a European by birth. His pre-monastic name was Colin Edward Reid, and he was an initiated disciple of revered Mahapurush Maharaj. And he had been fortunate to come in close contact with some other direct disciples of Bhagavan Sri Ramakrishna. Revered Shambhu Maharaj narrated to us the stories of his knowing about Vedanta while he was in a job in Rangoon, his coming over to India for getting spiritual counseling, his meeting with Master Mosai and Swami Abhedananda Ji Maharaj, his staying in Mutt under the holy care of Mahapurush Ji, and many such things which were narrated afterwards in an article entitled How I Came to Sri Ramakrishna, and it was subsequently published in Prabuddha Bharata in February 1990. He was a rose expert and a keen observer of birds, flowers, and trees. Other times he used to be immersed in his own spiritual practices, self-introspection, and intense study of mainly 3 books, namely Shiva Purana, that is in English, Life and Teachings of Saint Francis of Assisi, it was in 3 volumes, and Practice of the Presence of God by Brother Lawrence. Shambhu Maharaj, who was childlike in nature, was very reluctant to give any spiritual advice to anybody, at least so as we observed him. Once when persuaded again and again by us, that is by myself and Swami Sarvapriyananda Ji, he commented, "Go on repeating sincerely the holy mantra given by your Guru and try to meticulously perform works assigned to you by the ashrama authority. These 2 things are enough for you to reach the goal." Another time, when we went to him for making pranams before coming to Belur Mutt, of his own accord in an ecstatic mood, he whispered, "Remember all this." In that way he showed, remember all this, that means the mundane world will wither away. That alone exists. That alone exists means God alone exists. In Deoghar, we saw another senior sadhu named Swami Nirlepananda Ji, Vidyapith Maharaj. He was a Marathi by birth, to whom leading the life of an ardent ascetic in tune with pure Advaita philosophy was as natural as air. He was initiated by revered Swami Shankarananda Ji Maharaj. Vidyapith Maharaj used to expect the same austere lifestyle from the newly joined brahmacharis that he himself used to lead. Literally, he never kept more than a pair of clothes. His life was like an open book to everybody. We never saw him closing the door and windows of his room from inside, even while he was relaxing or sleeping on his wooden cot, which was bereft of any mattress or pillow. He was a self-appointed trimmer of all trees of Vidyapith, and that's why he was known to the boys as Woodcutter Maharaj. At noon, he used to render voluntary service in the library by repairing the brittle books in a professional manner. Another remarkable feature of Vidyapith Maharaj was his glowing open eyes, which would seldom blink. When for the last time we met him, his health was collapsing every moment that time. So when for the last time we met him in Deoghar, I inquired about his health, and in reply, he in a stammering voice murmured, "The body requires some occasion for dropping down." Very few days after this meeting, he passed away silently and peacefully. The incidents narrated above are about some great monastic souls who are no more in their mortal frame on this earth, but the spiritual vibrations they created through their lives and sadhanas are perennial fountainheads of wisdom and everlasting by nature. Vidyapith, at least so far as my experience went, was and still is more remarkably unique to have such non-monastic members also, teachers, staffs, they are included in it. They would be centenarians had they been there today, who in terms of their spirit of renunciation, service, spiritual elevation, were no less than renouncing monastics. Many are still there to bear the testimony of my statement. I reverentially remember Shambhuda, a peon in the school, who at the age of 8 years came to Vidyapith during the tenure of Swami Tattwasarananda Maharaj, the first secretary, from Bankura in West Bengal. Swami Niramayanandaji in his Bengali book, Pran Purush, wrote one long poem, Shambhavi Kabya, which was on Shambhuda only. Since his entry into Vidyapith till he was about 85, not on a single occasion he went out of the Vidyapith campus to see the outside world. When we saw him, he was leading a retired life. In every respect, he was self-dependent. Almost the whole amount he earned through his service to Vidyapith, he donated to Vidyapith. We heard from revered Shwetanandaji Maharaj that Shambhuda was unbelievably meticulous and sincere to the responsibilities assigned to him. Whenever we used to see him, we saw him sitting in front of the school and either looking indifferently at the white panorama of Vidyapith or attentively reading only one famous book, Bhagavan Labher Path, which was written by Srimad Swami Vidyapith Maharaj. Never did we see him going to the temple to pay ritualistic obeisance to Thakur. One day he narrated to us this incident which we are citing here in his own language. You know, he said, you know that previously I was a short-tempered person using very harsh words to people frequently. But one day when one cook of the kitchen, Shambhuda mentioned the name of that cook, I am not mentioning it here. When one day one cook of the kitchen roughly abused me, completely depressed me, I started thinking in myself that when I use harsh words to others, they also must be feeling the same pain as I was feeling at the words of the said cook. Then addressing towards, he said, you know, Maharaj, that from then onwards, I never uttered a harsh word to anybody. So this incident later reminded us of the famous verse of the Srimad Bhagavad Gita, Atma upamyena sarvatra samang pasyati yoryuna sukham va yadiva dukkham sayogi paramo mataha. I regard them to be perfect yogis who see the true equality of all living beings and respond to the joys and sorrows of others as if they were their own. Even after these past 3 decades, Vidyut Mukhopadhyay, his memory he still comes to my mind. He was a senior game teacher and he was an initiated disciple of Srimad Swami Shankaranandaji Maharaj. He used to train the boys how in a sincerely humble and dignified way they were to invite the monks and the teachers to the annual sports ceremony of Vidyapith. Once he had a palpable vision that His Holiness Srimad Swami Shivanandaji Maharaj was entering into Vidyapith with a stormy stream of radiance. That vision put forth a lasting effect on Vidyutda's life. Just on the previous day of his demise, he evacuated his room completely except the photo of his illustrious Guru. Next day in the morning, when revered Shwetanandaji Maharaj was taking our scriptural classes as usual, someone came and informed us that Vidyapith had passed away silently in his room. All the inmates, including all the monks of Vidyapith, carried and cremated his hallowed body, and a special puja was offered to Sri Sri Thakur, and a big bhandara was arranged on that occasion, as is done in case of a departed monk. Lastly, I want to mention about Charuda. Old Charuda, an initiated disciple of His Holiness Srimad Swami Vijnananandaji Maharaj, was a teacher of mathematics. When we saw him, he was more than 80. He was a Swadeshi. He never used anything but a pair of cloth, banyan, and a chadar made of khadi, and a blind follower of the famous musician Vishnu Narayan Bhatkande's Swaralipi. He had a feeble but very melodious voice. When in the early morning he used to sing the well-known Shiva Sangit, that Shashadhara Tilaka Bhala Ganga Jatapara, only accompanied with a well-tuned tanpura, hairs on the body of the listeners would stand on their ends. Charuda led an inspiringly contemplative life. As a knowledgeable teacher of mathematics also, he was well accepted by his students. Charuda's younger brother, a retired postman, Taruda, was initiated by Swami Madhavanandaji Maharaj. Both Charuda and Taruda used to live in our Sadbhavananda Dham. I joyfully remember Deoghar, the cobbler of Vidyapith. Deoghar, even when he was nearing the age of 80, used to make the repairing shoes and chappals for the inmates of Vidyapith. He was Srimad Swami Vishuddhanandaji Maharaj's disciple and liked to talk about his Guru emotionally to the hearers for even hours. He was earnest in his spiritual practices. In such a way, Deoghar Vidyapith was full of such inspiring lives, and on this holy occasion of the Centenary celebration, I joyfully remember and reverentially pay my obeisance to them, since my sadhu life still hovers around their hallowed memories. Thank you. Namaskar.